Welcome to the channel. My name is Martin, aka Modest Intentions, and I am a full-time music coach and a producer. And in this video, I want to talk about creating Mainstage drum and bass from scratch. Some of the things I'm going to talk about can change your life. Some of them, maybe you know them, but I think the most important thing is the combination of all the things mentioned in this video. That's where a lot of people may suddenly notice that something in their workflow is missing. I work with 40 clients actively at the moment, and here's what I know. I know that a lot of people have problems with their workflow. I would say at least 35 out of 40 clients that I'm working with have workflow problems. What does it mean? Well, essentially, like if you were to draw an analogy, I would say it's like creating a code or like solving a mathematical quiz with unnecessary load of information. So removing a lot of things out of the way will definitely help you to be more productive. Probably not going to help you to be more creative, but will definitely speed up the process of writing music. So I thought to myself, well, I'm already helping those people out individually, telling them what they do wrong, helping them fix bad habits, but is there something else I could do? And this is when I came up with the idea of this video so that I can actually show you my own workflow. In this video, I'm going to use very basic synths, very basic plugins, and a lot of samples. So obviously, like, you're going to ask yourself, how is this video going to help me if this guy is going to show me using good samples? Well, this is the first problem of your workflow. You don't have good material that you're sitting on. So that's interesting. So that if you really think about it and develop that thought into something like reach to a logical conclusion, then the conclusion should be that I should split the let's say synthesis part of music production with the actual creation of a song into two different projects. Let's say you don't have some good drum loops. How are you going to make a song? So are you now forced to open an empty project and start creating the drums from scratch as well as everything else? Isn't that a little bit tedious and unfun? But then ask yourself, do you have mood for creating like a whole song today? Or do you just want to get better at something? Do you want to get better at making snares? What do you feel like doing today? If you feel like doing the second thing today, just download some cool drums or cool songs, put them in your FL Studio, and look up some YouTube videos on creating snares and just do that. I have a lot of awesome videos on creating snares. And not just the snares, also the kicks and the percussion. You can look those up and just try to create a very small library. As you can see, I have my own sample packs right here, right in front of me, and I don't need to waste a lot of time trying to create the drums. So a lot of you are going to be complaining about that, should be complaining about that right now, to be fair. Yeah, of course, it is so easy to create drums that work. Yes, it isn't. It's not easy. Obviously, you're right. But my point is, until you've reached the level in production where you can prepare yourself for the process of music production, actually the fun part, right? Where you make a song. Well, chances are you're not going to be any more successful than you are at the moment. You're not going to improve a lot. It's almost like going to Olympics without preparation. You need to do a lot of hard work behind the scenes to actually have fun creating stuff. So if I want to create drums right now, I'm just gonna drag and drop a few loops, and if they sound like a lot of my other tracks, well, I'm just gonna layer them with some other samples that will have just extra harmonics on them, and boom, I got a new set of drums. Not to mention even that people like Metric use the same drum loops all over again. Have you ever tried mixing Metric's tracks live? Have you tried? Have you tried double dropping Metric's tracks? Well, you go try. Because when you do that, you will suddenly realize that Metric's drums are phasing and canceling themselves out. So it can be argued that you need to do this like once every 3 months, and you can just keep using even once a year. I mean, Metrics still uses those old drums a lot. You could just make a sample that works and create your own style off of it. So this is already like out of the gates a lot of the time. I would say 95% of the times out of the gate, people don't know what they're doing because their workflow is incorrect. They try to make everything from scratch in the same project. How can you even enjoy the process? Sometimes you feel more musical, sometimes you feel more groovy. You gotta split those processes. I call this a lab mode and music mode. In the lab mode, I just do the drums. I just sit and do the drums. And I'm going to leave the links in the description of this video of myself creating the drums. You can see those videos, and honestly, like, you have all the information out there for free. So start from here. So I'm going to start from the exact same thing as I do usually. I already have awesome drums. So when I want to actually make music, let me just drop random drum loops on top of each other. Let me show you how you can create drums in 4 seconds if you learn how to create samples. So you just drop this one right here, call it break. Drop this one right here, call it, I'm gonna put it on the same mixer track. And now I'm going to cut off the low end of the drum loops. And as you can hear, already I have full, bright, and harmonic breaks. So now I just add a kicks and a snare that work, and it can be argued that my drums are going to sound professional without any equalizing, a lot of compressing, without limiting, without clipping. Very basic stuff. Just do all of that on the stage of creating samples in your lab mode. I actually have projects called Snare Room, Kick Room, which you open, and there you can see the internal parts of the drums. So you can open that project when you feel like working on a kick drum or a snare drum. Like, I don't have a kick drum that works. Okay, cool, but you have a really good fundamental kick somewhere. You have a project, you open that project up, you make a few copies, drop them into the new project, see how it works, right? That just makes sense, you know? So now that I have a lot of samples, I'm starting to kind of get more experienced with how I use them also. So I'm going to drop kicks and snares, and then I'm going to have a list of my favorite ones. So this kick drum, though being suitable for a lot of tracks, I'm not a big fan of. But let me go back to my first sample pack. This one, actually this one, I think is my favorite. This is like my favorite kick drum. So let me just put that in. How do I know it's my favorite? Well, I tried it in various scenarios, right? Because, as I said, I split the production in 2 different scenarios, like lab mode, music creation. So in the lab mode, I made this like 10, 15, 20 kicks. I've tested them all, and I've come to a conclusion that this is one of my favorite ones because it works all the time. So I just use it. So you can see how powerful that kick drum is. And I created this one with Kick 2. The best thing about Kick 2, which is also a tip to improving your workflow, is that if you want to create a kick drum and you don't have good reference kick drums, within the plugin there is a... the plugin itself has drum and bass presets in it, which are in the folder called DB. So once you open that folder, you can listen to Subfocus, Fox Stevenson, Calyx, and I think someone else's kicks, and start building your own ones from their sample. So here's a good tip. So let's look at this. Now let me just add a snare that I feel like adding today. Let's say this one. And just like that, I got a almost complete drum loop in just 5 seconds, right? Not sure about this snare. I don't think it's fitting with the drum loops. So let me try a different one. Oh, this sounds pretty good. Let me pitch it up a little bit. I feel like pitching up my snare today. So if you used a sample for many times, you can just layer it with your newer samples. Like this one, for example. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to put this snare on a separate mixer track. I don't want it to be connected to the main snare. Let's call it back snare, okay? Why is my C not working? That's interesting. I don't know why. So that is weird. But anyway, what I'm gonna do right now is I'm going to remove the low end because I don't want the punch of the snare to double. I don't want 2 clicks, 2 attacks and 2 punches. I just want the noise part. So I'm going to create some space. And we have much more bright tail on the snare. So let's hear that. It can be argued that it's maybe a little bit too powerful. So let me put it down a little bit. Now let's compare before and after. Super important thing. Most people don't do this for 0 reason. You do not compare before and after. You just don't do this. You have to. You have to understand that you really need to feel what works better. How do you know what you're doing is not a mistake right now? Well, you have a reference track you listen to, and you have your own drums, and you listen before and after. It's also funny to me that a lot of you watch the videos where you want to see before and after. So you would skip the whole video to go to the end and listen to before and after and draw a conclusion if you should watch the video. But then in your own projects, in your very own projects, you add the samples and you don't listen to the before and afters, which is quite honestly terrible and shouldn't be like that. So we got a pretty decent Mainstage drum and bass loop. And right now, honestly, if I wanted to, I could have made this in like 5 seconds, right? It's not difficult. So now I'm going to put everything on their own mixer tracks in their respect. The samples have to be taken care of individually, except for the breaks, because they are here to fill the track with the noise, with a little bit of the transients, just the action stuff. So no need to, push that really loud, but the kicks and the snares, all of that, you need it to be put on mixer tracks. And honestly, I don't like to mix it very loud. So I like to mix things like to -6, -7, especially the kicks and the snares. And a lot of people will use this knob here. Honestly, quite often I don't use that because I prefer Fruity Limiter to cut off the loudness from the sample. And here I will try to open the paint and explain why I think this is a better solution. So we got a kick drum that looks kind of like, let's say like this or whatever, right? So if you just go and decrease the volume, what happens is your kick drum looks exactly the same. Let me show you. It's going to look exactly the same, right? Well, actually, I didn't draw it the same way, but you get the point. So it's gonna look kind of the same, just a little bit quieter. Actually, yeah, this way. So this is how it's going to look. But if you actually use a limiter, you can turn your sound into more of a brick wall. And most of the times this is good because you are pushing the loudness. So what a limiter does is you can do 2 things at the same time. You can add the loudness with the gain knob. So we're going to make a kick drum this loud, right? But also you can limit your signal, which means that you give the command to limiter to not allow for anything louder than, let's say, this point to come through to the mix, which means that the part over here is completely inaudible. It's being compressed. So looking at the picture right now, what do you see? What is the difference? So the difference is that your kick drum right now looks kind of like this. Which means that this sample in its beginning and in the very end is way more compressed, way more powerful. And in the electronic dance music, you want to reach the loudest possible type of sound. Well, not all of the time. It also depends on the labels, right? Some labels like to go really loud, like Monster Cat. Monster Cat really, they do like minus 3.5 LUFS kind of mixes, like really pushed mixes. Labels like Liquicity, which is the one that I love to work with the most. There we have like minus 5.5, sometimes louder depending on the artists. Like Fox Stevenson, I think is a little bit more powerful than that, but for the bigger half of the producers, minus 5.5 works better because it's a little bit more laid back of a mix, but still powerful enough to be like a dance floor kind of a tune. So to reach those even minus 5.5, not even talking about like even louder mixes, you need to give as much loudness to your elements as possible. So if you make them more brick wall like this, what happens is your mix is more a brick wall as opposed to being like a dynamic-y and kind of more like jazzy kind of a mix, I would say. Because jazz music or like orchestral classic music, they love a lot of dynamic range. Electronic dance music, they don't. So I know that drawing this stuff in paint looks really weird, but that's my way of explaining it, and I don't have a person to create the graphics for me. So sorry about that, but what we're going to do right here is you can see that I have a limit, like a seal knob, which is like a derivative from, it's like a short, it's short for sealing, which is the maximum loudness of the kick drum. So let's see what happens if I put the mix to minus 7. So what happens is the kick is pretty brick wall right now. It does show you in the purple or violet color, I don't know which one this is, the amount that is being compressed. But if you add another limiter after that, you see that the kick drum looks more like a brick wall than before. You can compare it. So this is how it sounds without a limiter. You can see that it's falling off a little bit faster. It's barely visible here, but you can see it. You can see this release tail right here, but if you actually compress it real hard, like let me do it real hard, okay? Boom, you see, I'm gonna push the loudness so the picture is similar. Yes, now you can see that after we put the ceiling on the sound, it looks more compressed. It looks like more of a sound. It doesn't fall off as fast, and it doesn't look like it's weak. It looks like a more fat signal. So this is something that I learned from using limiters, and this is something that I love to do all the time, all my kicks, all my snares. And also I like to make quieter mixes nowadays. So I will just put it to minus 7 or something like that, because I have a very powerful kick drum, so I don't want it to be really, really punchy. And I'm going to do the same with the snare. I'm going to put it to minus 7. Let's open the snares up. And let's go minus... Actually, I like my snares to be a little bit louder, so let's go like minus 6.4, whatever. And the back snare, I mean, you're going to put it to like a certain limit as well, because now it's louder. Let's say minus 11.5, minus 12. Actually could be done even quieter. Let's say minus 14. So right now you have pretty brick wall drums, even though they are kind of quiet. But you can look at how powerful they look. Look at this. Just juicy, punchy drums. Very similar to the picture that you see from this drum loop right here. You see the snares and the kicks are really like powerful and present. This is something that I like to achieve with the limiter. However, what limiter also does is it cuts the power from the drums, because it commands for the sound to be compressed and limited down to a certain volume. So if you want to avoid loss of power, you want to add some soft clipper both on the master channel and on the kick snare channel. So I create a separate send for kicks and snare, call it kick snare, and I'm gonna add a little soft clipper right here to make sure it sounds powerful, and another limiter to make sure everything is pushed to like minus 6.4, something like that. Maybe I don't need a limiter here because I have limiters individually. It can be argued that the kick drum feels a little bit too long here, too many cycles, really long, and the drum and bass type of music doesn't really like a lot of the time it doesn't like to have longer kicks. A lot of the times it does in more deeper songs, but with this Mainstage drum and bass, this should be just enough. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add like an open hat out of white noise, something that I do a lot of the times, not 100% of the times, but like 95% of the times. Just a white noise arpeggio, put an LFO to the level, add some white noise. This is going to give us some driving sense, like really powerful percussion. So once again, opening. Okay, just changing the phase here because some of my drum loops might already have this. And now I'm going to add this back into the mix. Right. Yes. This is a very important part of making the Mainstage drum and bass kind of groove. So now you can go and create whatever you want. So a lot of the times I don't start making tracks from the basses right away because it depends on the vibe that I'm going for. So if I want to create something similar to like more melodic, like Lexurus, like I'm a big fan of the guy. I really like to replicate his ideas and then just go my own way from some point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and try to create like an arpeggio or something, some atmospheric synth. And I'm going to use like a very basic way of creating an arp here. So I'm going to go for a typical sawtooth. Usually I just create a sawtooth and use that for a arpeggio, and then I can layer it with some other synth or remove it and replace by some other synth. But I just want to choose a key that I go, yeah, the track should be like an F. In my opinion, this is like the most popular. F minor is the most popular scale. It's not my opinion, it's a fact. So I'm going to just use that because I just want to improve the speed. I just want to do something until I feel that the idea is catchy enough, right? So let's just go for F minor. Okay, this is not necessarily an arpeggio, but it is a synth that can be used in the beginning, and it can be used to give a hint into the main melody. So we can use this synth to create like a melody on top of. And now you might be asking yourself, how do I come up with stuff that fast? Here's another workflow issue for you guys, because I think that a lot of people will go and start researching theory, which is, you know, if you just dedicate a little bit of time doing that, not bad. But the deeper you get into the rabbit hole, the more it harms you. I have zero musical theory, and I create orchestras. And, you know, the reason why is that instead of learning music theory through numbers and logic and some rationale, whatever the method the modern schools teach, like drawing some circles and logical correlations. First of all, I see how that doesn't work a lot, because a lot of the artists still struggle. They either read those things wrong. 95% of people who use that instead of their ears are wrong a lot. And I have to fix their melodies. Ever since I was a kid, like 14 years old, I was the guy, like I didn't know how to create the sounds, like I didn't know how to synthesize, but I was opening the project of like trance artists and like house artists that I worked with, and I was fixing their melodies for them. Those guys, some of them had musical education, some of them were going to like a school, like doing solfeggio, but they still didn't know how to do it. And I think my method worked way better, because what I did instead was I would listen to other people's music and try to play it on piano. The more I did that, the more I started to get a feel like which chords work with electronic music, which chords don't. So after like a year of practicing, I started to be like, okay, so if I want to create trance music, I can play this type of melody. If I want to create chill out music, I can play these chords. And if I want to create drum and bass, arguably these chords are going to be better, because every genre has like some chords that work better with it. How do you know that? Well, that's not a rule. You can't learn that from a rule book. A rule book will teach you some mathematical equations and like correlations, but it's just, there's a culture, and the culture has its own meaning, you know? Certain chords, while they do work rationally, like they work, they just won't work for drum and bass. You can't make classical music chords for drum and bass, because drum and bass has a different culture. So I would listen to a lot of drum and bass and try to mimic their melodies and their chords in my FL Studio on my MIDI keyboard, until I had like 5 to 10 different melodies to play around with in my head. I would know that this certain set of chords is just going to work, and I can just apply a different lead melody on top of it by being a little bit random. Nowadays, the software will actually help you. You can ask it to give you a certain key, and you will never miss a key. So just copy the chords that work and use the fixed key to draw a lead melody on top of it. And I think this is another part of a workflow where people fail when they learn how to make music. They go fucking really balls deep into theory, while all they should have done was take out a keyboard, learn to play that just a little bit, just good enough to use 4 fingers, 3 fingers of one hand, 1 finger of the other hand, to play a few chords and a top line melody. That's literally all. You don't need theory for that. You just need to listen and try to replicate. Like a bird, you know, the birds are not learning how the other birds are singing. They're not doing it. Their population is replicating themselves based off of instinct. And this drives me to think that most people like think that there is this thing called musical hearing, whatever. Bro, birds have it. Birds against people. Like, can you draw, like, can you imagine the hierarchy? Except for flying, like, what else, like, can they do? What we can do, we can do everything. Like, hearing something, yeah, of course we can. But I think that a lot of people get drawn away from understanding the music correctly very early on, because of the theory, because of the maybe some people explaining music wrong to them. So that is my hypothesis. I think that's what happens. So then when you start explaining things to people, that you can just clone other people's chords and switch them around, and, you know, based on your experience with the genre, and that's all you need, they really think that you're selling them something stupid. So I'm going to draw the chords and the keys and the arpeggios right here with crazy speeds compared to you guys. Because I actually listen to music. I actually try to replicate their chords. When I listen to a song, I sit and I listen and I think like, how do you play this melody? Drum and bass, Mainstage drum and bass has the most simple melodies. And if you can't get like wrap your head around a concept as simple as that, how are you gonna understand the music math theory, whatever? Just don't do that. Just concentrate on what's important. So we know that F minor is popular. We know that there are chords in F minor that work 99% of the time. So we're just gonna go and apply the knowledge that we have. And this is like going to be my background key, whatever you want to call it. Like, let's say intro synth. I was intending to make an arpeggio first, but I actually love this. So I'm going to give it some release so it would sound a little bit more long and full. And I'm going to give it a lot of low pass with a moving LFO filter. Maybe like this. Let's add a little bit of chorus. Some distortion, sorry, some reverb. Okay, cool, awesome. So we have a small intro right here. Now I'm going to go and create a intro pad. I'm going to make a Reese bass from 2 sawtooths with a little bit of fine tuning and a lot of unison voices, like this maybe, and a low pass. Awesome. So we know that it's an F simulator. There was a track by Muzzy called F minor simulator. That's why I said F simulator. We know that it's F minor. So let's call this intro synth. Now let's create a new pattern, call it intro low pad. Now let's just copy the long key, and that's just good enough for the intro. So now look at this. Okay, this is, I'm sorry, this is the wrong octave. Awesome, isn't it? So how do I make a melody like that? Already gave you an explanation. Pretty sure there's a drum and bass track with a melody like that somewhere, or very close to that. I'm just using my memory. I'm just using my hand memory from playing different drum and bass melodies. And by the way, you don't actually have to play this for your whole life. You'll just need like a year of practice at maximum until you really start to memorize the keys and seeing what really works for the genre. You just need to develop that part. So it's not like you have to actually learn to like play the piano, because I don't really play it. Like I just you know, see the chords now. So I can kind of play, but if you ask me to play something specific, I'll probably fail. And my fingers are not developed as well. So I'm not going to be able to play things fast. But don't forget though, I still don't know any theory, like barely any theory. My students teach me that. So now I'm going to open a arpeggio synth and put it in the background here, right here. So let's remember that we're building off of an F minor. One more important tip for your workflow. If you want to create a melody that works, just use your fundamental key, F minor. If you want to create an arpeggio on top of it, keep it there in your piano roll or like whatever MIDI tool you're using. If you're using Ableton or anything else, just keep it playing there so you can actually hear how the things sound. A very typical, it basically like an F minor, kind of an arpeggio. So I'm going to add it right here. I don't know if I want to keep it in the same octave or if I want to go higher. It really depends how the two synths are going to sit with each other. So I'm going to call this ARP and call this pattern also, let's say, intro ARP. And for now, I'm going to keep the same octave. I'm just going to... I'm going to add like a lot of delay here. I like when the arpeggios are more moving. I do think that you really need to go one octave up here. And maybe open up the low cut a little bit more. Feels like it needs a little bit of stereo, so I'm going to add some voices. Just one voice is fine. And let's just play those things together and give it a good thought. Nobody does that. Literally nobody does that. You just made something and you don't listen to that. Don't believe me? All right. Get 40 clients and work with them, and you will be surprised that people create something and they don't listen to what they make. So if I were to give you another workflow tip, once you add an element into a song, listen to the part of the track with this element, first of all. Secondly, well, if it's in a drop, for example, use a piece of the intro and the build-up to listen to from that part to the drop, including the synth, to see if the synth is not only good for the drop, but also in the context of the whole song. Very important things. A lot of you people don't do that. All right, you can see the sounds are a little bit too similar, so they're creating a problem. So how do you fix that? Do you just go and change a waveform to a more complicated? Well, an argument could be made because these are exactly the same synths. This one, they are basically the same sawtooth, but there's an easier way actually. Instead, you could add a lot of reverb and a lot of delay and just let it drown in the background until it almost creates like a pad, but not quite, because it's an arpeggio and it has a lot of melodic switches. It's still going to sound kind of like shimmery, I would say. Yeah, this works. Maybe we could switch over with a few octaves and see what works best. Oh, actually, the lower even works now because it's so much better. Look at this. Very important, you don't need a lot of low end on the arpeggios and all that stuff. So I'm going to put it on a separate mixer track, and I'm going to cut off the low end with a very basic EQ. Okay, let's just push the loudness a little bit. So an argument can be made that those two things are still kind of similar. We basically created 3 sounds out of the same wave. Like, it's just a sawtooth, same waveform every single time. And while those are good things, like good layers to start off of, an argument can be made that you need to use something else on top of it, some extra thing, because you need them to sound different. So for this, like, you can download some presets. You could create your own sounds on top. So in this case, I'm going to just use a different waveform, the one that I really like, the Juno one, maybe this one, and just create a different intro synth layer. So the sawtooth is still there, but it's in the background. It's like more like, let's say, a layer that just makes this square Juno wave kind of more fat. So I'm gonna add the release. Maybe some low pass as well. Let's see, maybe an octave up. No, that sounds fine. Let's try a different wavetable. Okay, like this for example. Alright, so the difference in how those two things sound is way more right now. So I could push the ARP in volume much heavier. Let's see what happens. Pretty awesome. Alright, I'm starting to get the feel for the melody. So next thing I'm going to do right here is I'm going to create the copy of the low pad. And I'm going to draw like a different kind of a melody. So we're going to kind of use the synth and the intro to trampoline our main chord idea from it using the low pad. So in this particular case, going to use this sound and play around with the keys. Let's see. Let's figure something out. All right. Pretty awesome. And I feel that one thing that I did do wrong though is that this like square intro synth layer is kind of intro synth is kind of too low passy. So I don't want it to be like that. I'd rather keep it more open but more quiet. Let's try and add some delay as well, just to mix things up. It feels like I want to open it up a little bit more, so I'm going to use an EQ here. But before the reverb though, because otherwise the reverb is going to be really high passed as well. I'm gonna cut off a little bit of the high end on the reverb. Let's see how that sounds. And make a quick automation for the intro pad. Alright, this is pretty awesome. So what are we missing here? Are we missing something though? Clearly. The demo sounds pretty good and it starts to develop into something. And yeah, if I were to cheat, I would probably add another layer. Just go open like Dune 3 or whatever an awesome plugin, like synth plugin you have. Just go to some some sound bank, for example, keys, and just listen. There are so many awesome. Oh, this one, for example, freaking awesome. I'm just gonna use this one. This is awesome, right? So yeah, this sounds like a pretty decent intro, and obviously I like to give the DJs a little bit of a open hat somewhere in the beginning so that it's easier to mix it for them. So I'm going to use like a tambourine or whatever, just some cool sound here, just like this. Ooh, yeah, like this one. But here's the trick, you guys. Like in the intros, you don't want the sound to be too stingy on the high end, so gotta be careful. Maybe this percussion is too open, you know, so gotta maybe low pass it a little bit. Yeah, 100%. No doubt in my mind that it just has to be low pass just a little bit. Also gonna prolong it so that the reverb doesn't cut itself off. And in FL Studio you have this mod X, mod Y modulation built into every sound, so you can just... Oh, okay. So I'm making it more low pass, and I can add a little bit of resonance with mod Y. Okay, this is pretty good. Also, like, I actually feel that the intro ARP in the background, this one, is not fat enough. It just doesn't create the atmosphere enough. So to fix that, you're gonna just, boom, go to 16 unison voices and just add another layer here, another 16 unison voices. Becomes more fat, more wide, just removing a little bit of that delay. I guess it's over too much. Let's just add a little bit of release. Okay, this is something. Now maybe chorus, just make it more wide. Yeah, just, you don't want it to be like really audible, you just want it to be somewhere in the background. I would even actually add like even more reverb here. I'm a fan of using like so much reverb. I'm just gonna add Valhalla Shimmer and let's see how it sounds. Now it sounds almost like a pad, which is good actually. I kind of enjoy that. For some reason, I feel like there's a little bit too much like mid information. So let me just fix that. I'm gonna add another EQ and I'm just gonna fix it like this a little bit. Now it sounds more like an atmospheric sound in the background, which is good because we are trying to develop a melody with an atmosphere. So add a little bit of loudness back in. What do we do next? And I would say go and look for a pad that works in a minor scale. And we will fix it to the key here. So I'm gonna, for example, play this one, and we want to oh, I don't have the... Sorry, I don't have the bridge turned on. So let me turn on my splice bridge. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to... Sorry about that. I'm going to go here and choose an F key. So we preset it in minor, and we know that our track is in F. So we will have every sound from splice pitched to F, and every sound is going to be in the pad category, so all of them are supposed to fit, so we can play them together with a mix. Right now I'm gonna make the splice bridge a little bit louder here, and just let's play and see what happens. All right. Sounds awesome, but it's one of the most popular sounds in Splice, so I don't want to use that. I'm just going to go with random, and I'm going to use the random sounds, and let's see what happens here. Pretty good. Ooh! That's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. Listen to this. Okay, it's got some chord switches, which I don't like. I want it to be more like a flat, single chord kind of a thing. Or maybe like this one. I think it's the wrong scale. Sometimes Splice messes up with that, so... There's something interesting in the background. What was that? Oh, this is like a low pad. Gotta try and find something more. Less switchy. I don't want the chord switches. Ooh. Like, this is so good. I could use this in the drop. This is so good, I could use this in the drop. I have an exact idea how you could use something like this in the drop. Sometimes the pads will help, even any element will help you to develop the idea of the track. So I'm gonna call it like a drop pad now. Just out of nowhere, these ideas stop coming to your head, like once you produce, based off a lot of experience of listening to drum and bass. So I'm gonna add like a very similar jumpy what do you call it, like a sidechain. There is already something like that inside of the sample here, but I want it to be like a little bit artificial here. So I have an idea right now, so I can actually start developing the drop a little bit. You know, you don't necessarily have to get fixated on what you're doing. If you get a good idea, the better thing for your workflow is to jump to that next thing. Oh, you see? Oh, that's awesome. So now I'm gonna try and build around this thing. This synth seemed to have a little bit too much low information, so I'm going to make a mixer track called Intro Synths. And I'm going to allocate those 3 synths on it and remove the low end and a little bit of the mid information. I think they're a little bit too dirty. Maybe I will add like an OTT on top of it. Why not? Removing some of the low ends from OTT. Alright, that seems more open. So now I can actually work on my bass. And I'm gonna try and do like a very basic reese. I feel like doing that. Let's see. Let's go here. Let's call it a bass. And let's call the pattern the bass. And let's just create like a basic melody for the bass. What I like to do is I put an empty like piano roll into the drop and I start designing the melody. With the drums, okay. All right, this sounds pretty awesome. So I'm going to create like a bass melody and the sound. Awesome. Single pad and an intro synth. Boom, it clicked. And this will happen to you way more often than you think. So once again, let's repeat. Learn how to design the drums. Don't be scared. Just learn that. And don't do this like, it's not like you can't create a track before you learn how to synthesize the drums. You can just sample the drums. You can just choose the best samples that work. You know, you can just choose the best samples that you like and make a little library. But it's good that you have some favorite samples as opposed to searching and searching and searching. This can be really, really tiring and really difficult, then just create a basic arpeggio going off of a key that you kind of want to go for. So go look for some popular keys. If it's Mainstage drum and bass, you know, you don't have to be super creative. Just go F minor or F major if you like major music. A lot of producers now use that. You can be creative if you want to, but you don't have to. If you want to just save your time and not invest a lot of thought into it, just go with F minor and, you know, it's going to work 100%. Then think a little bit about the chords that work with the genre and try to kind of do something within the vicinity of like other drum and bass tracks so that it kind of falls into the same category, you know, at least. Don't have to like repeat things exactly as the others do. Then just add some pads, maybe create yourselves, maybe add some arpeggios. Just use Splice for inspiration, and that's when something can happen. This is one of the key reasons why I always tell people to use Splice or Loop Cloud or something like that, because when you do that, sometimes the sample will inspire you to create something. You know, you're using other people's work, and you credit them by paying them for that, and you have the rights to use those samples, which is the most important part. So from the productive standpoint and the creative standpoint, you're actually doing better than if you were to sit there and create everything from scratch, create complex 125 track mixer template, everything routing into other things. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It just makes your life miserable. You are just suffering, bro. Like, get rid of that algorithm. So now I'm gonna use like some basic CJW sounds, like a square saw type of wavetables to create some awesome Reese bass here. Let's add some distortion. I don't think that I want to do this actually. Let me keep it a little bit more simple. Let's just go like this and see, like, I want to create like a very chill kind of a vibe here. So I don't necessarily want to go and distort it. So let's go maybe create a band pass for this mid basses and make them a little bit detuned. Ooh, that is too much. Let's maybe low pass it a little bit. Oh, there's a distortion there. Turn it off. Okay, this sounds pretty good. I'm gonna put it on a separate mixer track. Yeah, just going to use a limiter for now, because I don't like it to be really loud, because my drums are like -6, -7, so I would keep my bass at around -10 at the moment. Also, you can see that there is a lot of like dynamic. I don't want that. So actually, I will separate the subs from the mid bass. Maybe I will actually add some distortion then. Let's see, maybe we could do something like this. What I'm gonna do right now though is I'm going to remove the low end completely up to like 150 hertz. It's fine. And now I'm going to use a sub bass. Oh yeah, I just cloned it, sub bass. So that our waveform is a little bit more specific. Yeah, so you can see the powerful subs right now. Very clean, powerful triangle wave sub. Just this one. Let's add a little bit of soft clipper here as well. We'll make it a little bit more warm. Beautiful. Now let's see how that sounds. I have no idea, honestly. actually no sidechain yet, so I'm gonna create a bus or send, whatever, for all bases. And I'm going to use a kickstart right here to trigger a sidechain. We could actually use the house sidechain. Let's see. Nah, not a big fan of this. So I'm just going to use a MIDI, and I'm going to open an empty MIDI output and just draw the kick snare on an empty pattern. Call it SC for sidechain. Put it right here. And now let's see. I'm going to teach my MIDI to trigger off of the empty MIDI. By default, the port for input is 0, so we're going to use 0. Yeah, now it's chaining. But oh, right. What I'm doing wrong here is I think I'm dragging in everything into a sub bass. So this is actually a sub bass, and this one should go into this one. So we will remove the sub bass. And I'm going to add a kickstart on a new track and add input port 0 here. So now you can see our mid bass is also sidechained. However, I don't want it to be sidechained to the fullest, so I'm just going to sidechain everything up until like 700 hertz, actually even like 500 hertz. So this is the part that we sidechain. Everything that goes outside of this range, we're not sidechaining it. And also maybe I would try to make like a 7th from here. So let's see, maybe +1, +7. Let's see if that sounds better with the bass. There's a little bit too much distortion here. Okay, this is a huge detune, so let's just... Okay. Does kind of sound better though. Let's soft clip it. Pretty awesome. Gonna add some width, some chorus. No idea how that is going to sound, but let's play this together. No arpeggios, no important sounds here yet, but... Oh no, I want to sidechain that bass part as well. Without it, it's just gonna sound so dull, so... gotta sidechain everything, actually, I think, unfortunately. This sound like... The 7th is really loud, so I'm just gonna push it down. Alright, pretty good. Gonna add a few more layers to the bass. Sounds really boring at this moment, so let me go sub bass, right? Bass right here, anything. I might go through a few presets, so let's see which ones I got here. I don't know why it goes like that. Yeah, this is way more powerful, I like it. I could use like a... I learned to make this from Excellent Sound, actually. Those guys, some of the craziest YouTubers in terms of music production, really amazing content. I watched some of their videos and kind of tried to learn how to create like a yoink bass and came up with something like this. So like not a creation of my own, but could be a decent layer which we could apply. So I'm gonna put it on a background. It's just gonna call it like mid bass 2. I'm just gonna call this mid bass 2, and the first one we'll call it mid bass 1. So I'm gonna actually try and low pass it like this, maybe. And let's maybe use like a filter for low pass, like this. And just put it in the background. I don't want it to be that open. I just want it to be more chill. Add a sidechain here as well. So we'll just add it to the all bass. Send here. Boom, let's go. And like we still don't have like anything in the drop. We don't have the melody. let me add some arpeggios. Kind of starting to get somewhere a little bit. It's probably like too loud right now. So it's not well mixed or anything, but we're kind of going somewhere, you know? I do like the idea of this sub bass playing together with the pad like this. Let's see how the pad is really loud though. Don't forget that our bass is like -9. I'm just gonna make it a little bit quieter, gonna remove some of the low ends from the pad as well. Make it a bit wider. Okay. So I think the bass is going to, like, it's fading too fast. So I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen. Okay, let's make it even slower. I do feel like we are missing a little bit of the high end though. So let me open up some of that. Possibly we don't need that much chorus, but I'll keep it like 50% of what it was for now. I think we also have quite a fast pitch shift here, so I'm gonna make it almost inaudible. Really powerful, a lot of voices. Let me make it a little bit more mono. What if I remove the mid bass and play it without the +7 kind of bass? Kind of boring a little bit. Let me add it back in. All right. It starts to sound a little better. So next thing I want to do is I want to push the loudness of the mix a little bit to find the errors. And now let's go +3, add like 3 dB over the limit. I hate the kick drum now, you see? The kick drum is really annoying, so I'm gonna make it a little bit more relaxed. It's really loud here. All right. Actually, like before, I liked this kick drum, but now I think that it's really annoying, so I'm gonna try and change it to a different sample that I use. Maybe this one. This one is a really amazing kick drum, but it's not a lot of people know how to use this. Okay, there's a similar one. Oh, yes. I like this kick so much. It's like a prototypes kind of a kick drum. For whatever reason, the background synth just screams too much in your face. Let's just put it behind. Put it in the background a little bit. Not behind, in the background. Oh, it goes into the sub bass for whatever reason. Let me just fix that. I don't know why that was the thing. That, now I see. It was suppressed by... oh, Jesus. That might have caused so many problems. Alright, so you could probably be a little bit creative with the drums, so I will try and add like a generic amen break here in the background just for fun. I don't know what happens. Let's just try it, right? I mean, seems pretty good, but we could try playing around with some samples. Or this one. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. But let's play around, let's see what happens. What about this one? I don't like it. Let's try different ones. What about this one? This is so loud, let me limit that. Not a big fan of this one. What about we use something more classy like this one? Oh, this is pretty good. And the trick that I've shown in one of my previous videos, I'm gonna use this one here to create like a really wide spread out drum loop. So we're going to create a copy of this one. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Right. So I'm gonna put them like slightly pre-delayed. This one I'm gonna pan to the left like 30, actually 40%. I like it like that. And this one I'm going to pitch it down a little bit, and I'm going to go pan it 40% to the other side. So right and left. Okay, I got it right. All right. I think we can use that to create more wide percussion feeling. Something like this. And let's play that all together. Maybe we can put them a little bit closer together. Yep. Awesome. Gives the track exactly what it needs. Just a little bit of shakers movement. I could add a little bit more of that, like maybe through some driving percussion, because I don't think I've used any aside from these two drum loops at the top. But then again, you have to understand what I'm doing here is just pure impro. Like, I'm not doing anything smart. I'm just using like the basic fundamental knowledge that I have, and I go by the template. So I'm gonna just keep doing that. I'm just gonna keep using the drums that I pre-made and just enjoy that. This is pretty powerful. So with those percussions, I like them because this is like a driving percussion, but the driving percussion, it has a problem when the kicks and the snares start clashing a little bit. So I'm going to add a MIDI and input port 0, so it sidechains. So I just need the hats. Also kind of too much low end. I think this is the one that I made early on, so I don't think it was mixed really well. So let's just keep it to the noise. And you can see that it's really like has a lot of jumpy sounds, so just gonna compress it with a limiter. Let's just play the drums all together. Let's remove these three. Yeah, you see it's so much more alive. Awesome, awesome. So now you could just open like a plugin with awesome presets for leads. Sometimes I use Dune, sometimes I use something else. But you could use Dune to kind of start building around the lead melody. You know, let's do tunes too crazily. Let's try to keep it more chilled. I don't know, let's try. I just also feel that this is like a little bit too high. So there is a solution for that. Sometimes you want to keep your track in F, but the melody made suggests that it shouldn't be. And here's why. So this key, this key here is really high. So the drop starts with a really high key. I just don't feel that it works. But if I go 1 octave lower, it's kind of too low already. So like, not sure about that. We could try that, but if that doesn't work, I can just move the whole track a little bit like more up. Let's go one octave lower, and yeah, it's a little bit too low, you know. But guys, I'm actually going to stop right now because unfortunately I really have to go. So yeah, somebody's calling. But I hope you enjoyed this little video of me producing stuff, helping you out with the workflow. And if you have some questions, or if you like one-on-one mentoring session from me, let me know in the comments, and I'm going to definitely respond, and we can talk face to face and see if there's something you want to learn that I can help you with. And thank you for paying attention, and see you around.